Alabama and Georgia playing in the SEC championship game. What a big one it is in Atlanta. And we're going to talk about that, but we're going to talk some recruiting. The recruiting class is in. I want to remind you that not only did Bama have a great recruiting class, but we got you covered here at Tuscaloosa Hyundai. Yep, just started the year-end winter sales event, 0% for 60 months with also no payment for 90 days, which would be after the Super Bowl on brand new Santa Fe's and Tucson's. Great selection of these vehicles, and they have new Hyundais starting at $21,989. Tell you what, that is a great deal. Our friend Barry Buckner, our friend Brooke Meisner over there, going to take care of you guys. So make sure you swing over and check out Tuscaloosa Hyundai. And we had Barry on. Barry made Jake a turkey call, and he gave me a pen that he makes. So not only is he a great guy when you need a car, but he also is a guy that's creative. And another guy that's creative is this guy here from On3 and BamaOnline, and that is Andrew Bone, our longtime friend, the guru of recruiting, man. Great to see you.
Good to see you, Mick. We used to do this pretty regularly back in the day, so good to get together with you again.
Yeah, we need to do more stuff, man. It's good to see your face. We love you. Everybody loves you on the show. You're very famous around these parts because you're the top guy when it comes to asking about recruiting classes and knowing all the details. So what do you think about Bama's recruiting class? Just kind of give me a breakdown. And did they get everyone that they thought they were going to get? And did we have any surprises?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, going back to last year, there was a lot of questions about how Coach DeBoer and the new staff would recruit at Alabama. And obviously they hit it out of the park in year one, signing a top 3 recruiting class. But going back to last year, everybody on signing day, they were wondering, where were all the in-state guys? Where were all the Southeastern guys? And we saw a little bit of a change in that this year. And not to say that they didn't go outside the state and recruit or outside the Southeast and recruit, but they really built some great relationships. Within about a 5-6 hour radius. For guys that they really wanted, guys that they pursued early in the process, guys that they evaluated thoroughly, and guys that they really wanted, and built some strong connections there. And I think when you look at this class, you have a lot of high-end guys, but you also have a lot of high-end guys that turned down a lot more money to go to Alabama, and a lot of that had to do with relationships. A lot of these relationships were built more than a year ago. Had these guys on campus, throughout last season, throughout this season. Of course, most of them committed before the season started. But I think, establishing those early connections with this recruiting class, certainly paid off in the end for Alabama when these guys, got ready to make decisions. We saw a big wave of summer commitments, as we always do, and that kind of takes out a lot of the drama and excitement when it comes a little bit closer to the early signing period, which I call it National Signing Day, because there's not really anything that's going on in February anymore. It's all happening, the first Wednesday through Friday, pretty much the first Wednesday in December. So this is kind of the main event when we were really kind of watching everything, making sure all the guys that are committed sign, and who were going to be the surprises that end up potentially falling out. But overall, when you look at Alabama's class, I think they did a really good job of hitting on some key needs. Defensive line was such a big priority for them in this year's recruiting class. You signed 5 defensive linemen. I think last year I was wondering, how would Alabama be able to sway a top quarterback prospect after signing Keelan Russell last year, and they were able to do that with Jet Tamala out of Nebraska. State record holder, so many categories: career passing touchdowns, career passing yards, and he had an unbelievable senior season, and won back-to-back state championships. Taden Kawa, another quarterback originally from Honolulu, but played the last 2 seasons in Utah at Orem High School, won a state championship this year as well. So you get 2 quarterbacks that are used to winning and know how to win. So getting 2 guys after signing Russell, certainly a big win there. But going back to the in-state, I think that they certainly hit a home run there, grand slam, I guess you'd say. With guys like Xavier Kroll, 5-star running back, #2 back in the country, out of Jackson High School. A kid that reclassified. He's technically a senior. He's that age group. He was held back. It wasn't like he got held back as a ninth grader or 10th grader or something like that, and then moved up. Or he's only 16 years old and decided to move up. He's actually he's either 17 or 18 now, and so he'll get to college and he'll be in his class. You get Cedarian Morgan, top 3 wide receiver in the country. You get Zion Gibson out of Gadsden City, defensive back. Kamarion Johnson out of Muscle Shoals, and then you have a guy who kind of emerged late, Malik Franklin out of Daphne High School, defensive lineman.
That's my neighborhood.
Yeah, that's right.
In LA, let's go.
Yeah, coached by former Alabama defensive lineman Kenny King, who was
nice.
He's a pretty big recruit himself, coming out of Daphne back in the day, and then starting at Alabama. So you got to like the in-state haul. I think defensive back wise was another fantastic year. Mo Linquist, I can't say enough about him and the defensive staff and the way that they've been able to recruit. I remember, Nick Saban retires. Everybody was freaking out. How's Alabama going to be able to continue recruiting at such a high level in the defensive backfield? You got to keep T-Rob, Travaris Robinson, who was on the staff and who would do a really good job recruiting for Alabama during this time there. But if people go back and watch a little video that Alabama put out the other day, it talked about having that script A when you're walking through the door. That's going to help you out a lot more than actually who you are these days, and that can be said for players on the team, for coaches, and but I think with so much, I guess, anxiety from when T-Rob left and went to Georgia, and everybody wondering if Alabama was ever going to be able to recruit high-quality defensive backs ever again. Those doubts have certainly been erased because you see what they were able to sign last year. Dejon Lee's a starter for Alabama heading into the SEC championship game as a true freshman. And then this year's cycle, you get Jira Edwards, the number 1 safety in the country out of Baltimore, St. Francis, one of the best high school programs in the country. And then, Jordan Edmonds, another, very high quality, number 3 cornerback in the country out of Atlanta. These are these are players that so many schools were going after and really wanted as a part of their program. And not to slam Georgia too much, but Jira Edwards was the guy that had Georgia in his top 3. Jordan Edmonds had Georgia in his top 2. We saw it last year with Dejon Lee having Alabama and Georgia as his top 2 favorites before he makes a decision for Alabama. So even though you lost Nick Saban, even though you lost T-Rob to Georgia, Mo Linquist and that staff, they've been able to come in, not just get players that are, they feel like are good, that are, within a 4 or 5 hour radius. They're getting guys that, that they went to war with against Georgia, against the coaching staff that all these Alabama fans were worried about the moment Coach DeBoer walked in. They're not worried anymore because they've seen the results off the field, and they've seen some results on the field as well. And hopefully, for Alabama, they're going to see similar results on Saturday.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Guys, let me tell you about AveD, Mick Nation. Hit that QR code right there and be part of what we're doing. We got some swag, obviously some new hats that came in. We also give away weekly cash prizes, and it's all free. It's your opportunity to pick games. Who do you think's going to win? Alabama, Georgia. You can go there and pick it, and we be part of what we're doing. And then eventually, like I said, that's our future home for all of our content, probably on the net, Web3, AveD, Mick Nation. I said that, and Mike Johnson was laughing at me on Friday. He didn't like the name too much, but I didn't name it. But I do. I know a good thing when I see it, right? No, I'm just kidding. What are some of the guys you were talking about? Some of those guys like in the secondary. Obviously Bama got the biggest recruit last year that they ever got in Russell. And now you still go out and get some quarterbacks. Who are the guys in this class that you think will have the quickest impact? Like the Latsier Brooks, type guys that are going to be able to come in and immediately. And I know Coach DeBoer talked about that in his press conference, have an impact.
We're always better to give out our instant impact type guys after the spring than we were in December these last few years, because you see the guys that come in during the spring and you don't think are going to make an immediate impact, or the guys that come in during the summer, like London Simmons and Caleb Edwards. These are two guys that came in June, and you don't normally see those guys that arrive late that are going to come in and make an impact really early in their careers. Usually the guys that are going to arrive early. Well, Alabama's class this year, I think 20 of their signees as of right now are all slated to, it's 18 of 20 are slated for early enrollment, which is huge. You're getting a lot of guys that are going to be in, for spring practice, that are going to go through winter workouts, that are going to get used to being around their new teammates and getting acclimated with the entire program. So, who are some of the guys that are going to be able to make an impact early? I think it's kind of you have to kind of wait and see who does Alabama get in the transfer portal, who ends up leaving Alabama that, might be a little bit unexpected, and you never even know who might get hurt. But if we do have to name a couple players, I would probably look at, a guy like Jira Edwards. I mean, he is, from a physical standpoint, one of the most physically gifted, athletes in this class. And how quickly can he pick things up in Alabama's secondary once he gets there? We'll have to kind of wait and see. But I mean, this is a guy that's 6'2", 210 pounds. Looks like a 3-year starter in college football already. He comes from a very prestigious high school football program that has been pretty kind to the University of Alabama through the years. So that's certainly a guy on offense, or on defense, that we're going to watch to kind of see how he develops and progresses over the next 6 to 8 months. And then on offense, I'd probably look at Xavier Kroll. I mean, this is a elite running back that Alabama fans have been obviously really excited about, talking about throughout the entire year. Really eager to get him on campus, and he is certainly a high-end talent. I think the biggest question for Alabama at the running back position is what's going to be, or who's going to be on that roster after the season. Are we going to see some guys end up hitting the transfer portal because they want to get more playing time? Of course, they want to get more touches. So who's going to be able to still be there? Who's going to compete? But man, I'm just kind of looking into the future. 2 years down the road, you have a guy like Xavier Kroll and A.K. Deer in that backfield. You've got some serious weapons. So I do think Kroll is a guy that could come in and get some touches. I'm not saying he's going to make an impact or start or anything like that, but I do see him contributing early in his career.
Yeah, it'd be fun to have that. Plus the running back position right now. I mean, look at it. There's definitely opportunities for somebody to come in and run the ball. And I think that also leads to opportunity, leads to maybe the guys that could have an impact. Now, let me put this back up on the screen. And I know this could still change, right? But this is where when we're doing the show right now, this is where the recruiting classes are ranked, right? So USC's number 1, Notre Dame 2, Oregon 3, Georgia 4, Tennessee 5, Bama 6. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think with Alabama, what I like to look at most of the time, even when they're number 1, in some years, I like to look at the average star quality in each class. I mean, I think that kind of tells you exactly where things are. Let's pull that up and look.
Yeah, there you go, 3.
Yeah, number 3 right there. So you're recruiting some really high quality and signing some very high quality players. I always kind of look at it as a 2-year class. You look back at last year's class, you get Keelan Russell, you add Jet Tamala and Tatum Kawhi this year. Last year, A.K. Deer, you pair him up with E.J. Kroll. Last year, Lazir Brooks, Derek Meadows, you pair him up with Cedarian Morgan, and so on and so on. So, I think when you add this class in with what you added last year, and as long as you can keep those guys, you got to feel really excited about the future of your program. Obviously, every single year you've got to re-recruit, renegotiate, and some of those guys aren't going to pan out. Let's not be foolish. There's going to be some guys that may not ever play a snap at Alabama that sign here and they end up transferring somewhere else. And, maybe they start somewhere else. Maybe they don't play a snap anywhere else. But I think, Alabama as far as evaluation standpoint, we've seen some really big hits in their first year. We saw some really big hits from the transfer portal. You look at the guys that they've signed from the transfer portal the last couple of years that have made such a big impact, within the program, especially the guys that they brought in from Washington, like Cuevas and Brailsford. Obviously, Germ this year, Isaiah Horton. I mean, they've certainly done some really good things in the transfer portal, and guys that they build relationships with, evaluate, and bring in on their own. And then, this past year's class, or last year's class, excuse me, but a guy like London Simmons, who, nobody even thought, would be an impact guy as a true freshman, or Lotzier Brooks, who, a lot of people probably didn't expect, much out of, at least right away. We thought he was great. Thought he was going to be a star player down the road. Didn't know if he was going to come in and especially with the wide receiver class wide receiver room that they had going into the season. We thought it was going to be extremely tough for him to play. But man, they've certainly hit some big. They've had some big wins on the recruiting trail these last few years as far as evaluations. And I think they're going to. I think with this class, you've got some really high end guys, but they're also paired up with developmental guys. Jaira Edwards, 5-star, top safety in the country. You weren't going to be able to. These days, with the rev share, with NIL, you can't go out and get 2 5-star safeties. You can't go out and get 2 5-star wide receivers because everybody in the country is trying to sign a 5-star wide receiver. They're trying to sign a top 100 quarterback or top 100 running back. So those guys are going to get offered big money elsewhere. So you're really just trying to sign at least one really good player at those positions where you're trying to sign 2 or 3 guys total. And I think with Alabama this cycle, getting Jaira and then going up and getting a guy like Rahiel Kelly, who's a 6'3", 185-pound defensive back out of Cincinnati, who played alongside Justin Hill, Alabama Wolf freshman linebacker.
Oh yeah,
they see things in these guys that they really like, and they're not just offering guys because we don't have enough money to go get somebody else. No, they're not going to take somebody that they don't like.
Right.
You kind of start seeing, and we saw this week. We saw some guys that end up falling out of the class, some lower ranked guys that I would say they were pretty much taken because they were cheaper. Right. You'd already spent some money on some of these other guys that you really wanted, that you'd heavily recruited throughout the process. And then, when some of these other guys started getting some offers late, they're like, go on, you guys can go somewhere else because we're not going to pay you, what other schools, I'm not saying what you think you're worth, but what other schools think you're worth.
Right.
You just don't have the money to be able to do that. Whereas the other school's not getting that 5-star running back. They're not getting that 5-star wide receiver. So, they can pay you a little bit more like we're paying for our guys. So I think they do a really good job of kind of mixing it in on both sides of the ball. And they've done a really good job of evaluating guys. But they've got to hit on these evaluations. You can't just can't miss on them because then you're set back. But like I said earlier, London Simmons, 3-star defensive lineman, didn't even have an offer from Mississippi State or Ole Miss in the state of Mississippi. And he plays meaningful snaps in the biggest games of the season. Now, a lot of that has to do with injury, but he got thrown into the fire very early and has continued to get better. And I think Alabama saw something in him that obviously other schools didn't. And you kind of expect and hope that that's what they're seeing in a lot of these guys that they're out there evaluating, and not promising these big offer deals too. But if they do well, they're probably going to they're going to get a little bit of a raise. Yeah.
Well, it's just kind of crazy how this business has changed so much. Like, you're talking a lot about the money and kind of having a roster management based on money, and looking at Alabama in the top 6, how much of this is we have to save some for the transfer portal? I mean, does that play into what you go out and do in recruiting on signing day?
No doubt about it. And it really kind of starts during the summer when you have these. There's a lot of schools, and I'm not going to name them all, but there's a lot of schools that are really aggressive as far as trying to get a lot of early commitments, and of course it upsets Alabama fans when you kind of get into March and April and May, and Alabama might have 3 or 4 commitments, and other schools out there have 17, 18, 19, 20 commitments before the summer. Well, they're pressing hard to get those guys on their board. They're going ahead and making their promises, their money promises, and all that good stuff. Where Alabama just doesn't do that. They don't make any money promises until official visits start. They get these guys on campus. Because they don't want to just make a promise to a guy in January or February just to try to get them to come back for an official visit in June. You want to build that relationship. You want to see how interested they really are in your program, in the coaching staff. Are they genuinely wanting to potentially come to your school, or is it all about money? And when it's all about money, very early in the process, a lot of those guys, Alabama doesn't really talk to them again. They don't bring them in for official visits. And, even before official visits, there was probably 4 or 5 guys this year that had official visits that were scheduled heading into the summer. And, Monday or Tuesday before the weekend, Alabama picks up the phone, calls, makes sure everything's straight. Hey, and then you have an agent that says, "Hey, here's kind of the starting number. Well, guess what? We're not going to bring you in for an official visit now because that's not really how we do things. Plus, that's way higher than what we're even going to think about paying him." So,
right.
So we saw that, and I think there was one wide receiver this year that tweeted out once we announced that he was no longer coming on the official visit, and everybody was like, "Oh, he canceled his official visit," and I was surprised because the kid actually came out and said, "No, I wanted to go on that visit. Alabama's the one who canceled it." Well, they canceled it because your agent said you wanted this much money to at least start the conversation. So
wow,
those situations are going to happen, and I mean,
where'd that guy go?
He went to another SEC school just a little bit north from Alabama. But I think they do a good job of kind of handling the money situation, and a lot of kids are surprised by it too when they come in on these official visits because they're hearing about these big numbers from these other schools throughout the entire year, and they come into Alabama and they sit down and they have their conversation thinking Alabama's about to offer me the exact same amount of money, and it's a lot of times it's significantly less, and that was the case with a lot of the kids in this year's class. It was significantly less, but you built those relationships for such a long time,
right?
More than a year. You can talk to a guy like Nolan Wilson from Mississippi, who very first offer was from Alabama, and then he started getting all these big offers, 7-figure deal offers from different schools.
Wow.
Most notably from Miami. I mean, that was a school that was really pushing hard to try to land his signature, especially at the end, the final days, even this week, trying to steal him away from Alabama. He said, "You know what? I don't care. My heart's always been at Alabama. That's where I want to go. That's where my family wants me to go. The money will come. Not that he's coming in for free. I mean, a lot of these high-end guys, they're still getting paid very well.
Right.
But there's just some schools that are going to make a ridiculously higher offer in some situations. And, when a defensive lineman, I'm not saying Nolan, but, there's other defensive linemen in the country, there's quarterbacks in the country, offensive tackles in the country that are getting a $1.5 million deal for 1 year going out of high school. And then you got then you got to renegotiate after that year. No, Alabama, they're going to pay kids that they really like. They're not going to pay them 7 figures, but they're going to pay them, hey, you're not going to make more than a starter on our team. We're going to bring you in. We're going to see how you do. And you don't have to necessarily start your freshman year, but if you show progress, if you're somebody that you really want to work hard to make sure that you want to keep, then you can renegotiate there to make sure that they're not going to go anywhere else. But you, like I said, you want guys who want to be at Alabama, not guys who are coming in because they got the higher paycheck than anywhere else. In some cases, maybe Alabama does give a higher paycheck, but I would say out of the 20 guys that signed with Alabama this week, I would probably say 5 of them were guys that they may have paid more money to, and it may not even be that high.
Right.
It could be less than that, but I know especially on the higher end guys, the top 100 kids, every single one of those guys, and they'll tell you, offered more money, significantly more money from other schools, but because of the relationships, because because they wanted to play at Alabama, they committed to Alabama.
Wow, man, that's crazy. And it's kind of scary to think about too. Is it where does Alabama in the spending for recruits? I mean, where do they rank as far as the SEC and then even the country? I mean, are they in the top 20 in spending, top 10? I mean,
yeah, I think when you see a lot of these stories that come out, looking at the roster, how much they're spending on per roster, and everybody starts freaking out because I think there was some story earlier this year that said Alabama was in like the top 5 of rosters, roster spending. Well, that's their overall roster. It's not high school recruiting. You're trying to retain players that are getting big offers from. There was a backup. I won't say his name, but there was a backup lineman, and he plays a lot more this year. But there was a backup lineman during the offseason last year that they got close to 7-figure offer from another school, and this is after didn't really play that much last season, and 7-figure offer comes in, and of course a lot of people probably assume it's Jalen Mbakwe, but it's not, even though he was one of those guys that got a pretty big offer. But another guy got a big significant offer, and Alabama did have to renegotiate, but that didn't mean that they're paying them still 7 figures or anything like that. But you do have to bump the price up a little bit on some of these guys, which lowers the price that you're able to spend on others. So they're trying to do the right thing. They're trying not to just overspend from a high school perspective, because they do know that those guys are prone to leaving after the first year. So do you want to invest let's say $750,000 to $1 million in a high school kid that he may not play his freshman year and decides he wants to leave? Or do you want to say, hey, you know what, we're going to give you this amount right here, stick around, love the program, just dive deep into the program, and then we'll renegotiate with you after the season.
Right.
So that's what they really kind of do there, even though nobody's going to believe that outside of Alabama fans. If you're a Georgia fan, or you're an Auburn fan, Tennessee fan, whatever, all of them just like, that's complete bullshit. Alabama's paying millions of dollars for all these years, but they're really not. And you kind of saw that last year when you saw these guys that stayed with the program. I mean, especially guys after that first year. I'm really intrigued to kind of see how this first year's recruiting class, the Keelan Russells, AK Deers, how that's going to kind of shake out, during the offseason. Are all those guys going to be completely locked in? Are you going to see potentially some guys that hit the portal? Which, I mean, you're going to see some guys hit the portal. It's naive to think that every single player is going to come back next year, because there are going to be guys that every single person's got an agent. They're all getting calls already. Hey, your player's not, your guy's not seeing the field. Why doesn't he come down here? We'll pay him this amount of money. And then you go back to Alabama and say, well, hey, can y'all, he only made $300,000 this year. Can you bump him up to $750,000? Well, he didn't play a single down last year.
Right.
And he looked like shit in practice. So we're not going to play. And then the guy ends up transferring, and everybody blows a gasket because kids are getting stolen from
Yeah. I know.
They just don't.
Hey, let me ask you this, Bo. You've been doing this shit forever, man. How has it changed since the NIL, the transfer portal, and Saban retiring for you to have to cover this all the time?
I mean, It's similar in a lot of ways. It's different in a lot of ways. I mean, I think you're just kind of you're always on your toes just because any kid seems like they can get bought. But I think Alabama also does a pretty good job of, for the most part, they're trying to recruit kids throughout and that's why you don't see a lot of commitments very early in the process. They're not trying to get kids to commit in January. Now there are kids that will commit during their junior season, and
Right.
Alabama's not going to tell them no. Like if they really, they like the kid, but they're also not saying, "Hey, commit. We're going to give you an extra $10,000 just to commit right now," or "Hey, this is what our offer is for you." Those offers still aren't getting made to these kids until they come in for their official visits, and they start taking visits to other schools throughout the fall.
Right.
Start going to these junior days, and schools are saying, "Hey, is Alabama doing this for you? Is Alabama doing that for
Right.
you?" Well, no. Well, why not? This is what all the top kids are getting right now. So then you start seeing, some of these guys back out of their commitments. Alabama's fine with it because, like I said, you want kids that want to be at Alabama.
Right. The structure part of it.
All of that good stuff. So I like it when kids don't commit early. I like to, watch the whole process kind of play out.
Mhm.
And I talk about the process. It's really after this week, after the 26th class is complete, signed, sealed, delivered, then you kind of can start focusing on the next year. I don't get too worked up about these juniors that commit, before their junior season or even during their junior season. Once you kind of get into junior days and spring practices and spring games, then you can really kind of focus more on that group. And I think Alabama, for the most part, has done a really good job. These last cycle was a little bit different because they didn't get here until January. But that kind of goes back to saying, what I'm trying to say is you start really establishing those relationships during that January, February time frame, and you figure out, are these the guys that we really want to recruit? Are these guys more about the money? Are they more about having high interest in this football program? And that's going to carry over from building the relationships with guys last spring into the fall, and then you'll start seeing a lot of guys come in for junior days here next month.
Nice. Hey, I love the Daniel Moores. We both have them. Studio looks good. I've seen many Bone studios over the years, so I
Yeah,
like that one. I like the lights on there. Yeah, you guys can use promo code Bama Tailgate. Get a great deal on a Daniel Moore print. Are you ready for the holidays, Bone? Everything lined up for you now that National Signing Day has passed? You get to relax a little bit, or because you guys do a great job at BamaOnline and On3. I mean, I look at the site all the time. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously got the SEC championship. You're hoping you're going to be covering the college football playoff. You got basketball season kind of happening right now, and then you kind of buckle down for a few weeks. As far as recruiting stuff's concerned, but then. Once that transfer portal window opens on January the 2nd, and we really start trying to gather as much information as we can, well before then, who they're, obviously the positions, but who they're really going to be going after once it opens. Because they'll know a lot of these guys that are going to be going into the transfer portal and guys that are going to be trying to set up visits as quickly as possible, which, if Alabama makes it to the playoff, they win a couple games, that's going to be interesting, kind of see how all that plays out in that 15-day portal window. But and then you kind of just get back into the rhythm of things with the next recruiting class. But yeah, I mean, obviously a lot going on with the football team and basketball team right now. So we got a lot of things to cover on BOL, as you know. But it's been a lot of fun.
Well, there he is. Great to talk to you, Bone. Make sure that you guys go over to BamaOnline and do what I do. Get a membership. And I saw some great Black Friday deals. I don't know if you still have those. I was like, did I cancel and do it over again? I mean, I get Rivals and On3.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. I worked at Rivals for over a decade, and then I've worked at On3, almost for 4 years now. And then when On3 bought Rivals, earlier this year. It was kind of just kind of a full circle moment. So good to kind of get those brands to together. And you never know what might happen here in the future. So we're continuing to grow. Got some great writers on the Alabama site, but have great writers on the national site
Yeah.
too. We've got a entire network of great college football, basketball, sports writers, and continuing to grow every single year.
Yeah. We've had some of the national guys on too from On3 talking recruiting over the course of the season. You guys are the best, man. And then obviously we've had a great time with Chris Lowe on each week too. So this has become like the spot, instead of ESPN, it's like On3 has it all. So, well, Bone, have a great Christmas. Hey, you guys, I want to remind you that we're brought to you by Pearl River Resort over in Philadelphia, Mississippi. The Timeout Sports Lounge is a Vegas-style sports book right there where you can go, and it's got 20 big screen TVs. It's got the kiosks, the window, all of that stuff, and you can go there and make your bets. An hour and change from Tuscaloosa, 2 and change from where Bone's at in Birmingham. And this guy right here, their spokesman, Mr. J. Cole.
I may not suit up on Saturdays anymore, but I'm still in the game.
Let's roll.
In here, I call the plays, make adjustments, and lay it on the line. Want to feel that fire, that rush? Then you've got to get in the game. I used to say it in the tunnel, and I still say it now. Let's roll.
In some places, football is a sport. In Alabama, it's a fine art. New Life Art is now accepting pre-orders for Daniel A. Moore's next Crimson Classic, the Crispy Screen, guys. What a name to commemorate the Fat Boys. This masterwork commemorates the screen pass to Caden Proctor that outsmarted Kirby and the Georgia defense. Proctor's catch and bulldog dozing run set up Ty Simpson's 3-yard touchdown just before the half, which was a big score for us, guys. Visit DanielMooreArt.com to see the artist's preliminary sketch and take advantage of a special pre-publication pricing for the Crispy Screen. Go ahead, get into that. Go get you one of those Caden Proctor prints. I'm super excited to get mine in because he's living a dream of all the Fat Boys. And go look up that Crispy Screen and get you one, guys.
When you head to the Smoky Mountains, it's only natural to visit Sevierville.
Even we had to check it out.
And we've been here our whole lives.
Experience the adventure of a lifetime.
I'm king of the world.
Even you can get a bird's eye view of the Smokies.
You're going down, Billy. Whoa.
Your Smokies start here.
Thanks for watching, guys. Roll Tide.
We're presented by Bod Coach, and you can tell I'm slimming up over here, and it's because of Bod Coach. This is absolutely amazing. It's your personal trainer that is with you 24/7. So when I go to hotels or when I'm on the road, I type in, "Hey, look, I got equipment. This is what I have," and it'll make a workout specifically for me, what I want, what exercises I want. When I'm at home or I'm in a hotel and there's no way I can get to the gym, it'll say, "Hey, this is what I want to work on today," and it sends you personalized workout plans. It's really awesome. And they contacted me a few weeks ago to be a spokesman. I said, "Well, I want to try this." Bod Coach is fantastic. Like, I use it all the time. I mean, and if I'm telling you, man, like, it makes working out when you are on the go like me so much better. Just because I don't always know I didn't play football at Alabama. I didn't have Scott Cochran yelling, yeah, and telling me what workouts to do. So anyway, I'm going to put in the body on the YouTube all about Bod Coach. Get you guys signed up there, but tell them you heard it on Bama Tailgate.